Joining me is Senate Majority Leader Paul Gazelka to outline the Senate's budget priorities. Welcome.
Here we are again.
Here we are again. The Senate budget comes in at $47.6 billion with increased spending directed to both E-12 and higher education, as well as health and human services. So let's start with the education piece. What are your priorities in that area?
Well, we got a number of dollars for safe schools that were vetoed the last session, so we want to make sure that that's one of our highest priorities. So we have $75 million for that. And then we put money on the formula to let the schools decide which way they want to go. But the details still will be worked out in the education committee, just like every committee. But those are some highlights. So
some additional funding is going for education above and beyond just the increase that happens over time. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we wanted to make sure people knew that there's about $700 million of money that's automatically increasing that sometimes people don't consider an increase. We do, but we do spend money above that as well.
One category that falls both under the heading of education and also health and human services is mental health. And you've spoken about this on more than one occasion. More funding for mental health for students and also for others. Who are the others? What is the importance of mental health right now?
So again, last year there's different issues that were going forward. We have mental health resources for the ag community. That will return again, that we want to get done.
For farmers?
Yes, and we want to give the school districts flexibility, whether it's counselors or people that they bring in. There's something like 50 suicides, teen suicides every year. We know if we address that issue at the school that we can prevent a lot of those. It also makes our schools safer. We've had 2 school shootings in the last 50 years, but how do we eliminate that so there's never more? And so that's why we want to focus on mental health. And then Senator Senjum created more resources related to bonding and mental health, and so we're trying to flesh that out as well this year.
So more mental health access for different groups of people around the state. What are some of the other priorities in health and human services? I know that there's been a lot of work done on elder and vulnerable adults. What else beyond?
Well, those are 2 important ones that we're still moving forward. The opioid bill actually went off the floor just recently. That will be in conference committee. It's important that we see that all the way through to the governor's desk. We've really been working on that for a couple of years, so it's not done until it's done, but it feels like we're there, and that'll provide more resources for counties and dealing with kids that are, as a result of their parents being addicts and letting them go. We're going to reach out and make sure they have money for that. Plus, we're going to help fund programs in different places that are working. In my community of Little Falls, the hospital, the school, and the police all are working together to reduce this problem. We're piloting that program around the state and country, so resources will be going to things like that as well. So that's probably one of the biggest ones. And then same thing, you mentioned the elder care. That's a bill that we didn't get over the finish line last year, so those are the 2 that we're focused on. Elder care is moving forward. Even from last session, there's been more compromise and working out details as far as cameras that can be placed within a nursing home to watch the loved ones, those kind of things. But I'm committed to seeing those both get done this year, and those are the priorities I'm going to focus on.
Anything else in that area, though, that you want to mention?
No, there are many areas in that whole area.
It is a huge area.
Yeah, I mean it's over. I believe it's $15 billion or more. And we will ask our chairs to look to make sure that we're doing that properly. One of the areas is making sure that child care, any area that is being mismanaged, we're going to clean that up. I mean, that would be another area we've talked about. But frankly, that budget is huge, and there are so many areas that we have to work at.
Let's turn to transportation. In the press conference, you announced your budget numbers, and you were very clear in saying that $8 billion will go for roads, bridges, and transit over the next 2 years. What are the sources of that $8 billion?
So we combine all the money coming from the federal government and the state government. The state government is gas tax, tab fee increases, general fund, sales tax on vehicles. I mean, it's a massive number, but we wanted people to know that there's $8 billion that we get to use, and some of that could be for potholes. But the other part I remind people of is 2 years ago, for the first time in over 10 years, we added new ongoing money to transportation. It was half the sales tax on auto parts. It generates about $500 million in the next 2 years, and then every cycle after that, it's still putting money in. And then in addition to that, I'm open to spending money from bonding. Last 2 years we spent another $500 million on roads and bridges in bonding projects. I'm willing to work towards that with the governor as well. So point is, we have lots of money. We just have to make sure that we're putting it in the right spot. Roads, bridges, fix the potholes, I think everybody could agree, should be prioritized.
Let's turn to the area of taxes. Will there be any tax reforms that you propose this year, any tax cuts? What's the picture for taxes?
The biggest thing we have to consider is tax conformity. In November of 2017, sorry, not that long ago, the federal government passed a tax bill that we have to conform to. We want to do it in such a way that we're not raising taxes and we're not lowering taxes. So we have some conversation about lowering tax brackets, but in the end, the tax bill won't increase or decrease taxes. It'll just allocate it depending on how we conform.
So getting this conformity piece done won't necessarily impact the budget. It will just make it easier for people to file their taxes in future years. Is that kind of the gist of it?
Yeah, that's correct. Versus the governor and the House use that tax conformity to raise taxes. And so that there'll be a struggle there. The tax bill that the budget and spending bill that try to get that right. Okay. The budgets that we put forward and the tax bill that we have is basically the place that we can be without raising taxes. If we increase spending anywhere within our budget, then we have to talk about raising revenue as well. And so that'll be the big conversation going forward.
Are there any tax cuts, though, that you'd like to see happen?
No, we're not doing any tax cuts. We are proposing, for example, on the middle class that they would get a reduction in their income bracket, that it would go down a little bit. But that means that somewhere else taxes are changing that would increase that. The tough part about conforming is that when we conform to the federal government, it brings in more money into the state. And we're just saying we don't want to raise taxes on Minnesotans, but we're also not trying to lower them right now because we have a big budget that we have to figure out.
Right, makes sense. There have been calls for increased funding in the correctional facilities for more staff because there was an increase in assaults over the last year and resulting in 2 deaths of guards. Is this a priority in your budget? Will the corrections get more money?
So it is a high priority. We set a target already. The chairman there, Senator Limmer, is saying we have to have more money, so that's what he's advocating for. I'm going to lean into his expertise to figure what the right amount is, but at this point we have the budget set at $25 million for that area of additional money. It is a priority. In the end, we cannot let that be funded in a way that's not good, so we'll keep working towards the right solution.
One final question before we go. Are you hopeful that there will be agreement in coming weeks, considering Minnesota's status as the only state in the nation with divided government?
I am very hopeful. I have a good relationship with the governor and the speaker. We talk on a weekly basis. We've already passed a lot of bills that were not easy to get done, that required votes from both sides. That's typically what you need at the end of session. We're going to pass our budget bills early. We're going to agree to final targets, numbers that all 3 of us agree to. That's going to be early. If all of that happens, and so far much of it has, we'll get done on time and we'll pass a budget that Minnesota will be proud of.
Senate Leader Gazelka, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.